You made it all so good. With a promise, did what you said you would. Oh, I wonder why you're so good to me.
Hey everybody, it's Miss Jerry Lynn. We're here for our Sunday school lesson today, and today the lesson is called God's Kingdom. Now this lesson is what we call a parable, and Jesus liked to use parables. We find a lot of them in the Bible, and if you've never heard that word, all it means is a lesson or a story that is going to teach us a lesson. So the word again is parable, and it's a story that teaches us a lesson. And Jesus likes to use these stories to teach us a good lesson. That's what he's going to do today. God's Kingdom. Luke 13, verses 18 through 21. Jesus asked, "What is God's kingdom like? What can I compare God's kingdom to? God's kingdom is like a tiny mustard seed that someone planted in a garden. The mustard seed grew and grew and became a tree. It got so big that birds nested in its branches." Jesus continued, "God's kingdom is like yeast that a woman hid in lots of flour. The yeast made all of the flour grow into enough raised dough to feed many, many people." Now, sometimes Jesus' stories are a little bit tricky to understand, and these today might be tricky. So let's talk about it just a minute. Jesus talked about two things. He talked about a tiny little mustard seed, and he talked about some yeast. And both of those things were little bitty things that were hidden to start with, and then they became very big. Let me say big. So what Jesus wants us to know is that something that starts out very small can grow and be big in God's kingdom. And God, Jesus, wants our faith, our belief in God to grow and become something very big, and that makes God's kingdom grow. So let's think for just a minute. One way that we can make God's kingdom grow is by getting to know Jesus. And a lot of us are just starting to get to know Jesus. We're learning about him. We're just starting to get to learn about the Bible. We're reading our Bible. We're learning these stories and learning different lessons. So we start knowing just a little bit about Jesus. We start knowing just a little bit about the Bible. But as we know more and more about Jesus, we learn more and more about the Bible. We have more and more faith. We believe more and more. We become part of God's kingdom, and God's kingdom becomes bigger and bigger. So that's hard to understand. Another way we can think about it is, if we're part of God's kingdom and we come together with all our friends from our church, then one person may not be able to do a lot. But if we all come together and we're all part of God's kingdom, we can do big things when we all come together. Sometimes just one person, we don't feel like we can do a lot. Sometimes when we collect food, that's what we do a lot of times at church. We collect food for people who don't have enough food or afraid they might not have enough food. What a scary thing. If I just bring one can of food, that's not very much. That's not going to be enough for the people who need food. But if you bring a can and your friend brings a can and my friend brings a can and everybody at church brings a can, then we have a lot of food. Then we are God's kingdom. We've grown into a big kingdom and we are sharing God's love all together. So remember that these tiny little things with God's love can grow into big things, and we can share God's kingdom in a big way. So little things grow into big things when it comes to God. You guys remember that. I hope you have a wonderful week. I love you. Remember that God's kingdom is full of God's love. I love you. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, it's Miss Connie, and we're here for Sunday School. This is the last Sunday in January. We've had 5 Sundays this month to talk about the word. What's our word of the month? Include. So next week we'll be starting a whole new quarter of curriculum, and it's called the spring quarter. Believe it or not, we're getting close to spring, and we'll be having Lent during this time. And so for this part of the video, Miss Jacqueline Tant will be sharing with you. So I'm excited that she's going to be able to share with you, and you'll be getting some new packets. So if you want a packet, be sure to tell Miss Connie or have your mom and dad or whoever helps you with Sunday school to let me know so I can have one ready for you. Otherwise, I hope you are watching the videos. So today, with the word include, the story that you've just heard from Miss Jerry Lynn is the parable of the little mustard seed and how it's really tiny, but it can grow into something really, really big. And we want to remember that there are all kinds of things that God creates that may start out very tiny and end up being something wonderful in His kingdom. And you might be a little person, but you can do big things for God too. And so I saw in your packet that there's some, you've had this before, this is seed paper. So inside these little flowers are some seeds. So get someone to help you plant this and water it and see what happens from these little seeds that are in this seed paper. So, and in your ages 6 to 8, there's a paper and it's got some different seed, mustard seed, pumpkin seed, acorn, sunflower, and it asks you to grow what you think that's going to look like from that little tiny seed, what's going to happen. And on the back, there's a fun maze that you start and you try to get to the finish line. So, and speaking of trees, what I really want you to listen to is a really cool book, and it's called The Giving Tree by Shel Silverstein. So I want you to go on your Google, your iPad, YouTube, wherever you have a place. I know my grandson has Caribou, and to listen to the book, The Giving Tree. It will only take a little over 3 minutes, and it's a really neat book about a tree that keeps giving his entire life as a tree and what he can do for somebody else. So I hope that this week you learn and remember what can happen from the tiniest things that God creates in earth that can become big and wonderful for all of us in God's kingdom. Because you know what? Jesus loves you, and so does Miss Connie. So I hope you've had a good Sunday school time today, and Miss Jacqueline will be with you next week. And I want you to remember that I'm going to start doing a story time on our children's Facebook page. It's that private page. It's Children at Myers Memorial, so that you can share some time with me on Sunday afternoons about 1:30. So we're going to start that the first Sunday in February too. So I may not see you on Sunday school, but I'll see you in some other places. I love you. Bye.
Hi everybody, it's Miss Justine, and we are back for another Sunday school lesson. Today we're talking about the mustard seed and the yeast. And remember, a mustard seed is really, really tiny, and maybe you've gotten a chance to plant some mustard seed and watch it grow. And yeast, of course, is really tiny, and you can't even see them, but when you put it in flour and mix it with water, it can make lots of bread, because it can expand and make lots of bread. So we're talking about how Jesus said that you can start with something really small, and maybe a few people talk about Jesus, and that grows. And you, even if you're a small person, you can do your part. Maybe you show kindness to somebody, and that makes that person show kindness to somebody else, and in that way it grows. And you can tell somebody about Jesus, and then the kingdom of God can get bigger as the word of Jesus and His love is spread. So what we're going to do today is just, you have a paper in your packet that says, what do you imagine a mustard plant looks like? draw what you imagine in the space provided. And I'm sure y'all can do a lot better drawing than I did, but I kind of made it look like a tree because that's what Jesus said, that it would grow into a tree and the birds could perch in its branches. See, the little squirrel is already there. He's already drawn for you, and you can draw the little squirrel a mustard tree. I looked up how big a mustard plant actually gets, and it said that certain types of mustard plant can get to be 20 feet tall. And think about that. That is big. That's a lot taller than me or you. That's really big. So just use your imagination and create your mustard plant. And also put little yellow flowers on it because, you know, mustard that you squirt on your hot dog is yellow. That's because the flowers are yellow. It has lots of yellow flowers on it when it's blooming. So just draw you a picture of your mustard tree. And remember, no matter how small you are, you can be involved in the spreading of God's kingdom by showing love and by telling people about Jesus. And until next time, I hope y'all have a wonderful week.
Hey guys, I hope that you're having a great week. It's Mr. Tony here, and it's time to make a little bit of music. We've been talking about music, different kinds of music, should I say, for months now, but mainly looking at rhythms, since singing isn't always the safest thing, sadly, that we can do right now. And we've talked about all kinds of rhythms, and we've talked about some instruments that are used to make different rhythms. Last week, for example, we talked about the piano, and if you watched the video from last week, we looked at how it's both a percussion instrument and a string instrument. And so I hope that over the next few weeks we can spend some time looking at some different instruments and some different ways that we can play these rhythms that we've talked about. Today we're going to stick with percussion instruments because I want us to talk about some different notes that we haven't learned about so far this year. And I want to kind of start by reviewing some of the things that we have talked about before. So I'm just going to say this is a percussion instrument called a djembe. We've talked about the djembe. It has a drum head on it. It is great for playing notes that are faster and more quick, like quarter notes and eighth notes and even half notes. But when we get into like whole notes or even half notes, depending on how fast something is, then we need instruments that make a sound that lasts longer. We call that a resonating sound, or a sound that resonates for longer than a few seconds. So like with the piano last week, I could play a chord or play a note and it would last for several seconds. But with something like this djembe, once I strike it, the sound goes away pretty quickly. It's not really meant to hold out notes for very long. So when I'm playing rhythms like this, for example, this is eighth notes and quarter notes, both in this rhythm. So we have, if you remember what we've been talking about, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. That rhythm is pretty easily played with the djembe. So I can easily do that. If I add rhythms that have different things, like this one, for example, this one has 2 quarter notes, but it also has this. Do you guys remember what this is called? This is called a quarter rest. So a quarter note is 1 beat. A quarter rest is also 1 beat, but we don't play the drum or whatever instrument or sing during the rest. So for example, if I played this rhythm right here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just resting on beats 1 and 4. I could even have something that looks like this. 4 quarter rests in a row. It looks like this and sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because we do not play on a rest. Let's do one last rhythm like this. So if we have this rhythm, quarter note, 2 quarter rests in a quarter note, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. We only play the drum or the instrument on beats 1 and 4. Because this is a what? It's a quarter note and it lasts for 1 beat. This is a quarter rest. It also lasts for 1 beat. We just don't play our drum on that beat. And remember, we have faster rhythms like this with eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it goes pretty quickly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Quick rhythms like that, great for this. But what if we have something that lasts longer? Let me grab this one. This is a whole note, and it lasts for 4 beats, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's great, but if we have a whole note and we need it to last that entire time and have sound, this might not be the best instrument for it. So sometimes we have percussion instruments that make sounds that last a lot longer. And this is a good example of it. This is called a rain stick. If you've been in children's choir, you've certainly heard me and seen me use this before. It has all of these little wooden spokes inside. And true rain sticks would have seeds or little pebbles or little bits of material that are inside, and they settle at the bottom. And then when we flip the rain stick upside down, all of those little pieces of material basically fall down through here. So if I wanted to play a whole note and wanted sound for the whole time, a rain stick might be a good option. I can go and flip it upside down. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it would continue to play that sound, roughly 4 beats, but maybe a little bit longer. It's really cool because it makes this really unique sound to the music that can give it some texture that's not just a drum. If we're singing a song about the beauty of God's creation, we've talked about today the parable of the mustard seed. And when we want to talk about rain making something grow, that is our theme this year, is thrive and making something grow. We can use a rain stick to make that sound in whatever song we're singing. So all I need to do is flip it upside down, and it makes this long extended pitch like this that will last a lot longer. So that's the rain stick. I think it's just a super, super cool, the sun shines behind me, but I think it's a super, super cool instrument. And we can certainly use that some more. And when we all get back in person, we can all get a chance to play on the rain stick, because I think it's a really, really neat instrument. But what if we're not playing anything for a long period of time? Well, we had quarter notes, and we had quarter rests. Well, if we have whole notes, we also have a whole rest. And a whole rest just means we rest for 4 beats. Remember, we have half notes. Half note is the note that is just like the quarter note, but without shaded in, and it lasts for 2 beats. Well, the opposite of that is a half rest. And the best way to remember this is a half rest looks like a top hat. It's just a shaded in block with a line underneath it. While the whole rest, mine's upside down. The whole rest is the top hat upside down. So half rest, come on, Tony. Half rest and whole rest. They're just flipped. And the half rest is 2 beats, while the whole rest is 4 beats. So if I play this rhythm, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, because I'm resting on beats 3 and 4, because the half rest is 2 beats. And then if I have this rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Beats 2 and 3 are the rest, because the half rest is 2 beats. And now we have these quarter notes. If I had a whole rest like this, it lasts for 4 beats. So if I play the rhythm beforehand, it has a quarter note, a half note, a quarter note. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because I have the whole rest, which lasts for 4 beats. So there's a lot of cool things we can do with rhythms. And I can't wait to show you some other things. Because rhythms are really the backbone of all the music we make. So there's a lot that we can do with it. I hope that you guys have a wonderful week and we can make some more music together very soon. I hope you've enjoyed your Sunday school lessons this week. And we will see you next week on video. I'll see you then. Bye, guys.
Oh, I wonder how you made it all so good. With a promise, did what you said you would.